Hey everyone, my name is Rich, and this is Rich Talks Records, episode 25. And today we are doing something special. We are going to be doing a beginner's guide to the Boredoms, one of my favorite bands, and I think one of the greatest bands of all time. So, not necessarily an easy band to get into for a number of reasons, and I will detail all of that. So, and I don't want to spend too much time on my backstory with them or anything like that. If you watched my last video, Songs Nirvana Taught Us, I found out about the Boredoms because of Nirvana, and then the the Smashing Pumpkins, because Billy Corgan had interviewed them on an episode of Alternative Nation. So that I already knew who they were, but that was like the first time I saw them speak and got to actually hear some of their music. First album I ever bought was Poptari at Other Music in New York. My first time I ever went to New York, and for those of you who remember Other Music, it was an absolutely incredible record store that I believe they made a documentary about. I don't want to watch that documentary because it would just bum me out too much because the store closed. So, but yeah, that was first time at Other Music. I went straight for the bees and got Poptari. So that was a very exciting day in my teenage years. So the reason why the Boredoms can be difficult to get into is they have a sprawling catalog. A lot of it is not easy to find. A lot of it is kind of hyper obscure. There's lots of stuff that I don't have and probably never will have. And so there's that. There is the fact that then there is so I'm an American. There is the language barrier. But from what I remember, there is not actually that much Japanese in Boredoms lyrics. There was a website years ago that had, if anybody remembers it, I don't even remember the name of it at this point, but it was Boredoms. I remember it had music 100% good purchase was the top of it, and I think it was run by an American, but they had a Japanese friend who determined that they were like 10 Japanese words in the entirety of the Boredoms discography. There are small amounts of English on the albums as they were released by WEA into America, and later like the Vice reissues in the 2000s. Pretty much all that stuff is in English. Some of it is in kanji for I would believe like aesthetic effect. But there's virtually no English, minimal Japanese. What the lyrics apparently appear to consist of are either just sort of vocal utterances or some form of cosmic Esperanto that we just haven't clued into yet as a species. So that's sort of, I think, for some people, kind of another issue. And then there is the fact that the Boredoms are known primarily as a noise band. So there's also that. There's the fact that for most people, their music is absolutely unlistenable and totally unapproachable. I want to break that down, and that is kind of what the purpose of this video is. So, it's not an easy sell, but damn it, I'm going to try. The leader of the Boredoms, the auteur of the Boredoms, the RZA of the Boredoms, if you will, is Yamatsuka Ai. I forget what his birth name is. It's something Yamatsuka, I want to say. He has also changed it over the years to Yamantaka Ai and Yamataka Ai, and then in later years he just goes by forward E, Y, backward E. So kind of a, and so, but I always knew of him as Yamatsuka Ai, so that's just sort of what I call him, so I don't mean any disrespect or anything like that. Also, I am probably going to mispronounce all sorts of words here, and again, I definitely don't mean to be disrespectful or culturally insensitive. On the other hand, what I refuse to do is over enunciate any Japanese words. Unless you are part of the and by the way, if there is any of my viewership that has a crossover, if there's a Venn diagram of crossover, that would be amazing. But I feel like unless you are a Quinlan, Go North Japan, a Chris Broad, a Charlemagnon, the Tokyo Creative people, Joey the Anime Man, any of them, they all live in Japan. They all know how to speak Japanese. But I'm going to be saying Osaka. I'm not going to be that person that calls it Osaka. Like that's not happening. So while I might mispronounce certain things, I'm also not going to go like jag off and show you that I actually know how it's really pronounced. Like, that's not going to happen. So, but like I said, if I really mangle something, apologies from the jump off. But at any rate, Pat Chennington did a really good introductory video about Yamatsuka Ai's original band, Hanatarash. Hanatarash is pretty legendary primarily for their performance art spectacle, Ai driving a bulldozer into a venue, sawing a dead cat in half on stage. The fact that audience members would have to sign a waiver upon entry to the venue because they might be injured, all of that. So Hanatarash is cool. I'm not super deep into them, but they certainly are worth checking out. But it's primarily his group. It started off with him and a friend whose name escapes me at the moment. But in 1980, no. We will just get into the guide. I'm not going to do this chronologically. I have, as I alluded to in my last video, I have alluded to the fact that I have wanted to do a Boredoms video or videos, and I have constantly backed off for fear of kind of going down the rabbit hole and never being able to escape. It's hard to talk about music where so much of it is that attention deficit disorder sort of focused, and where you can't analyze lyrics. It's hard to decipher what is the band playing versus what is Ai's editing and mix and tape manipulation, all of that. It makes it hard to discuss in depth. So I have wanted to talk about them and just constantly backed off. And I have to thank, of course, thank Edwin Canestracci. I will link to his channel. Edwin has a magnificent YouTube channel that you should absolutely check out. And he suggested doing a beginner's guide. So here we go. I have divvied this up, instead of going chronologically, I have divvied this up into how I think you, novice person out there, whoever you are, should approach the Boredoms. Where you should start is, I consider there to be 4 phases of the Boredoms. Most people would tell you that there are 2 phases. I think there are 4. I divide each phase into something of a sub-phase. But at any rate, towards the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, an unlikely thing happened to the Boredoms, and they became critics' darlings, and they became especially darlings on Pitchfork. So, and this is an album that critics went absolutely batty over, and for once they were right. And that is 1999's, I think it came out at the end of 99. Yeah, it was December of 99. Vision Creation New Sun. In a perfect world, in a more adventurous, less corporate world, this would usurp like Pink Floyd or some of the other stuff that's considered trippy and wild and out there. This was the kicking off of the formal kicking off of the this was the perfection of the ultimate realization of the Boredoms' third phase, and that was sort of, again, critics talk about krautrock and can and noi. Really, what they were doing here was I think kind of a new symphonic form of rock and roll, heavily percussive. Really, what it was leading the way towards is what the Swans did. Sorry, Swans, but I just say the Swans. Starting with My Father Will Guide Me Up. There will be a rope that my father will guide me up to the sky, whatever that record's called. I'm forgetting now. But that run, and the Seer and all of those, that run of Swans albums, this in a way predates it. But while those albums are very dark, this is joyous and celebratory and exciting and amazing. It is divvied into separate songs. All of the songs are little like pictograms, so they don't really have formal titles. So you basically just listen to it. I want to say it's coming in around 64 minutes. You basically just listen to it as one gigantic, epic, masterful piece of music. And there are still little interruptive moments and hyperactive eye moments, but really this is just top flight sort of perfection, large form composition, and I think that if you have any kind of slightly adventurous musical tastes, I can't imagine you not enjoying this. I can't imagine this not working for somebody on a drive to work, and it going from there. It is masterful, critics' favorite, but again, they got it right. It is a masterpiece. Perhaps it is the masterpiece. So the where I would have you go next is into the second phase of the band. And the second phase of the band is more of just when the Boredoms were known as a noise band. But I think it's towards the end of the noise phase, and I think that it is the least abrasive, though there are some seriously excoriating moments on it. But that is 1994's Chocolate Synthesizer. And so this album, like I said, is still the Boredoms in their confrontational, freak-out, ultimate noise phase. However, they are starting to get into other areas. The album actually begins with the closest thing that the Boredoms ever had to a hit, which is the stomping, chant-along, call-and-response Acid Police, and one of the few moments of English. Acid Police, again, if you have any kind of slightly eclectic music tastes, slightly adventurous musical tastes, I can't imagine Acid Police being a complete turnoff. It's almost an AC/DC-esque stomp. Another great song on here, if you still want to dabble, would be, and kind of a great statement of purpose, would be Shock City. The final song, Now Dom Go Synthesizer Way, brackets Y, is also a good place to start. But there are some really, really cool mood act breaks, some really interesting moody instrumental pieces, or mostly instrumental pieces, and this is an incredible record. I don't know that I would put it necessarily in the masterpiece column, because I think they had already made their masterpiece of this phase, which we're going to get into in a second. But again, it's a really good place to start. And if Acid Police works for you, you can get into the other stuff. So we will now touch upon what I call the masterpieces. So if you like what you've heard, we will go into just some of the masterpieces that the Boredoms made. Again, Vision, Creation, New Sun is definitely in both of these categories, but that really should be your starting point, because there is something, it's so life-affirming and kind of weirdly accessible, I can't imagine that you wouldn't be into it. If Chocolate Synthesizer is working for you, what you want to check out is a fairly obscure by Boredom standards album that I consider to be a masterpiece. It was recorded live in the studio with John Zorn recording them. I believe it was recorded in New York. And that is... So it's considered a live album, but really it's almost more like a Peel Sessions or something. And that is Wow 2. And this thing is just absolutely phenomenal. And I think the thing that's so incredible about it is, you know, the early Boredoms constantly referenced punk rock, and you really hear the Bad Brains influence. And it's not for nothing that Yamatsuka Ai used to wear a DRI t-shirt. You hear the DRI. There's a lot of stop-start. There's a lot of sort of, there's a lot of sort of like post-hardcore punk metal riffing. The band is ultra tight. It's freak out, it's noisy, but these are people who are fully in command of what they do, and it's just awesome to hear them going off in a kind of sort of perfectly recorded way. And I could see any kind of person who's into rock and roll getting into this. The other thing is, there's kind of a weird early funkadelic thing. The band has a really unique way of sort of like grooving. Like they're not like a sort of purely downstroke like hardcore band or something like that. Like they're a lot riffier, and they're a lot more groove based. It's not surprising that they became the percussive like frenzy ensemble that they later became. But this is in its own way just a great rock and roll record. It's kind of like the parts of Live at Leeds where the band is just playing, but they're not really doing any songs, you know, except with a lot of shrieking and freaking out. Where I would go from there is, and this is the ultimate masterpiece, and this is the masterpiece of the second phase. I mean, this is like, this is perfect. And I talked about this in the Nirvana video, the first album I ever got by them. This is Poptari. This features the sort of the full band Boredoms in their glory, except I is just doing amazing, fascinating, wild, creative production things with the mix and with the tape editing and tape manipulation. If you're seeing, I'm showing you this artwork, it's all cut together just like this. It's every weird idea that you've ever had of, wouldn't it be cool if a band did this? This is that. This is like, they take it and run with it. And there are so many rapid fire textural changes and tempo shifts, and it just, and then I, as you're really getting into what the band is doing, I will just come in with some like wild production effects that just overtake everything. This is truly like one of the great Phantasmagoria albums. Yes, it's noisy. Yes, it's atonal, but it is just ripping, and it hits some sort of weird psychedelic fever pitch. If you are to use a Funkadelic analogy, this would be their Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow. This is one of my favorite albums ever made. You put it on and you go off. Also, as I said in the Nirvana video, it's home of Bore Now Bore, perhaps my single favorite Boredoms song, if they even have songs, if you can even consider it songs. Where I would go next is also kind of a signpost of where they were to go sort of on their next to the next area as a band. And I haven't talked about the Super Roots series yet, so I might as well do that here. And that is one of the coolest things about the Boredoms is they have this sort of there's the albums, and then there's the Super Roots series. And the Super Roots series, if you will, shows their work along the way. It would be in some instances, if Bob Dylan had released the bootleg series releases concurrently with his albums or something like that. And or if Prince was releasing his unreleased material concurrent with, kind of like that, just hyper prolific, hyper creative. But some of these are major statements on their own, and none more so than the third Super Roots release, Super Roots 3, featuring one 33-minute song, Hard Trance Away, brackets, Karaoke of the Cosmos. This is truly Karaoke of the Cosmos. And speaking of Prince, if you've ever heard the unedited version of America, the single version of America, this does it one better. This just kicks all the way out into hyperspace, and it's one chord change at a time, and it is 33. There's sort of the intro by eye. It blasts off. It goes up to the stratosphere, stays there. Yoshimi, the drummer Yoshimi, she joins, I think, on the second album, and is one of the only other mainstays along with Yamatsuka Ai. Yoshimi later went on to be an indie darling of her, sort of in her own right, as a member of Free Kitten, the Sonic Youth side project Free Kitten, as well as being the titular Yoshimi of Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips. So, and then, she's gotten, like I said, there's a lot of interviews with her. She's sort of the most approachable. So her drumming on this is one of the greatest drumming performances in the history of music or rock and roll or whatever you want to call it. Absolutely, utterly tremendous. So we will now go into the also essentials section, where I wouldn't necessarily classify these as masterpieces, but if you are liking what you are hearing, now, this would be where you should go next. So the first one would be Super Roots 5. And Super Roots 5, so there was no Super Roots 4. Supposedly there were copyright issues for whatever reason, who knows. The lore for many years was there wasn't a Super Roots 4 because there is apparently some sort of Japanese superstition around 4 being the number of death. At some point on the interwebs, in the later 2000s, I think, there was somebody who said that was horribly culturally insensitive to suggest that the Boredoms wouldn't have made Super Roots 4 for that reason. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? But there wasn't a Super Roots 4. But there was a Super Roots 5, and the Super Roots 5 was was really the grand ushering in of the era that gets capped off by Vision Creation New Sun. So Super Roots 5 is 64 minutes. It is essentially an album. It is in some ways as epic as Vision Creation New Sun. This is symphonic, ultimate, exploratory, exciting rock music played at an ultimate level. It has one of the greatest build-ups and then what I guess they now call drops in the history of all recorded sound. It builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. It goes into the ultimate blast, and then it just goes there. It just shoots you out even further. This is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous statement, and really, it goes one step further past Super Roots 3. So it's like Super Roots 3 to the 10th power, and it is absolutely, absolutely incredible. Where you should go next, if you were a fan of Poptari and Chocolate Synthesizer, is to check out the second Boredoms album, an album that has been released in a number of configurations, and that would be Soul Discharge. So this is the shimmy disc version, which you would probably want to get because the shimmy disc version also contains something called Early Boredoms, which has, and this is going to be like impossible to show up, but it is just a massive sound collage that I made covering 5 years of live tapes and rehearsals and all sorts of stuff. And this album, so this is where Yoshimi sort of shows up, and the Boredoms, as we really know them, kind of kick into full gear. This is just one furious series of spasms after another. This is the 1999, was it 99 or 94? WEA reissue. Is it 99? No, it was 94. And so they do have slightly different track listings. This one adds, this one adds 4 bonus songs: Milky Way, Songs Without Electric Guitars, Hawaiian Disco Bollocks, and Hawaiian Disco Without Bollocks, which I really, really enjoy. So you get this for those bonus tracks, or you go with the early Boredoms and you get this album is 28 minutes, and then there's like another 25 or 30 minutes of additional music. So pretty cool. And I absolutely love this album. This is, again, the freak out. This is, these guys are the ultimate freak out band, and this is kind of them at their freakiest, and it's really, really, really pure. Though the band themselves didn't like the fact that I would take so much authorial control in the studio and manipulate everything so much, which I understand that complaint from their perspective, but from a listening perspective, it's thrilling. I would, if that works for you, I then would go back a little bit further and check out their first album, and that is, so it goes by 2 different names. I'm gonna Osorazan no Stooges Kyo, and Osorazan is apparently a mountain where ghosts come together. It is a holy mountain. I don't know if it's a holy mountain in Japan, but it is a mountain where ghosts gather. But the rest of it apparently translates as the Stooges Craze in Kyo. So I've read different translations of what the title means. Who knows? It was released in America, and this is again the WEA version from '94, and it was retitled as Onin Bomb meets the Sex Pistols. Onini is Japanese slang, I believe, specifically for female masturbation. So female masturbation bomb meets the Sex Pistols. And this is a more prototypical version of what gets closer to perfection on Soul Discharge. But this album is still really, really, really intense and brutal and amazing. Major songs on here are Call Me God. One of the most furious spasms of early Boredoms is Lickin' Cock Boat People. And then the final track, Feedback Fuck. This reissue also contains the first ever Boredoms release the Anal Trilogy. So we will get to that later, but the last three songs are the Anal Trilogy from 1986. But the first album came out in 88. Where I would go next, back into the second phase, is their 1998 album, and I hope it's pronounced this way, Super R. Super R is even though it inverted the order, but it is in the same way that Chocolate Synthesizer to Poptari is basically close to masterpiece to masterpiece. This is the close to masterpiece to Vision Creation New Sun. It is unfortunately kind of considered a lesser work by some people than Vision Creation New Sun, because I think it's seen as sort of leading the way towards that album. But this is an absolutely incredible album in its own right. This would be like, the end of if Won't Get Fooled Again, but again portrayed like where they're thrashing about, but again played at a kind of like a near symphonic level, almost like a if late 80s Zappa was playing late 60s Zappa, but at a really crazy sustained pitch and not as consumed with technical proficiency. So this is an amazing album. I have spent many hours of my life with this album, and I cannot recommend it enough. Where I think you should go after that would be the final Boredoms album, not their final release, but the final album. And I have debated about if there's an album that I have debated about where to place in all of this, it's this one, because in some ways it's one of their most accessible, and not that this informs my thinking about it, but critics definitely have been pretty pissy about this one, and I never understood why. But anyway, it is their final album. It is 2004's Seadrum House of Sun. This is from their fourth phase. This is the post-symphonic. This is more of the heavily percussive, sun worship, sort of pure bliss music. It is two long pieces. It is essentially two side-long pieces, so Seadrum and House of Sun. Seadrum in particular is another step past what Superroots 3 and 5 do. It is, again, sustained rhythmic revelry with absolutely gorgeous piano over the top of it. I can't imagine how you wouldn't like it. So this album is basically two 25-minute songs. And then the House of Sun is essentially like a 25-minute sort of 21st century raga, like a modernist raga, and again, absolutely gorgeous. There's a lot to love about this album, and it was really unfairly treated as a disappointment. It is a major album, and if this is to be their final album, then it is a masterful statement and a logical ending point. And you can treat the releases that came after this as something of an epilogue. So yeah, I love that album. Where I would go from there next, then, would be a live album, and that would be Superroots 9. And part of what's cool about Superroots 9 is it comes with the, so here's the cool artwork, and you will never be able to see this, but it comes with the score. This is the full score of what they're playing. So when I say symphonic, heavily repetitive, and very simple elements, but perfect and all perfectly realized. This again was treated as sort of a weird, like, oh, they're treading water. No, they weren't. This was another logical development past what they had done on on C Drum, House of Sun, and so it is a live recording, but it could also basically be a studio album. And what is it coming in at? I want to say that it's coming in around around 40 minutes, I think. I don't hold me to that. But yeah, it is, if you like the later period Boredoms, and by this point technically they were named, if you can see that, Boredoms. This is amazing and vastly underrated. And if you like that, then you would go with really late in their career, and it would be the year that I got to see them play, and that would be the live album, which it's a film of it is up on YouTube, but I really recommend. I don't have a physical copy of it because I've never seen one, but 77 Boa Drum, and this is the band assembled 77 drummers in an outer concentric series of circles, and they played this one. Well, it's two long sustained pieces. I is at the center, orchestrating everything, adding some synthesizer noise. I want to say there is some guitar in there. It is, again, a glorious, massive, beautiful, meditative piece of music. Obviously, it's 77 fucking drum sets, so playing most of the music. So to say it's heavily percussive, so it is, but it's an amazing release. And like I said, right towards the end of when they were making records. So it looks like they haven't done a show since 2016. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that there are going to be any more records. They appear to have, and that's the thing, is I feel like the critics sort of being pissy about the later records. I think that the Boredoms came to a logical endpoint as a recording act. The idea that they start off as furious, noise, weirdo, tape cutting, and then become this like tight, weird band, and then go into sort of sustained almost like orchestral music, and then into just pure drum outer space stuff. Like, I think that is, but ending with like the simplest elements, the drum. I think that is a beautiful arc. So if you've heard all of that and you're like, wow, this is amazing, I just gots to hear more. Where I would direct you from here would be then to check out the Anal Trilogy. It was released in '86 as an EP called Anal by Anal, but it's also known as the Anal Trilogy. And it's Anal Eater, God from Anal, and Born to Anal. And it's mostly, I think it's just I by himself, just cutting tapes together and kind of making freak out stuff. And it's a, the other thing that was interesting is why they were called the Boredoms. After Hanatarash, I wanted, as he said, to create the feeling of boredom in listeners, and that was what the Anal Trilogy originally was meant to do. But it isn't boring. It's amazing, and it's really weird and incredibly creative. So absolutely worth checking out. Now, we will now really go down the rabbit hole briefly. There are the 3 Bartronics releases. The first one was in '88, that predates the first album. Then the second one came out in '89. That one predates Soul Discharge. And then the third one came out 2 years before Poptari. So that one came out in 1990. There supposedly is a fourth one. Supposedly there were as many as 7 that were going to come out in the 90s on Thurston Moore's Ecstatic Peace label, but those never materialized. What the Bartronics releases were cassette releases that I put together, and he would make a few hundred. So needless to say, I have no physical copies. They are thankfully up on YouTube. It's one of the good things about technology is you can't access certain things that you just would never have been able to hear. I kind of only knew of the Bartronics releases for a long time just as sort of like a rumor. So the fact that you can like hear them is really cool. They're all sort of a piece. They're basically the first two I want to say are about an hour long, and then the third is like 45 minutes. And they're basically just massive sound collages of just found sounds, cutting stuff together off a tape deck, Boredoms rehearsals, all sorts of, it's all sorts of stuff, just all cut together. And, but really, really amazing. Again, really, really creative. If you want to hear it as avant-garde composition, you can. Probably, if I had to pick a favorite, I would pick the third one, but they're all great. If you want to start with the third one, go there. So from there, we get to Super Roots 6. Super Roots 6 is, in some ways, sort of coming after Super Roots 5, a little bit of a retrenchment. It feels almost like, for anybody that remembers like Mowax, it almost feels like a Mowax instrumental mix, or it almost feels like it could be avant-garde versions of like RZA remixes. This is sort of an odd release. There are some really cool, kind of almost like funky instrumentals on here, but a lot of it is moodier and sort of muddier, slower. It's not one of my favorite releases. It's very, very interesting, and it might be right up your alley. But like I said, for me, it's a little bit of a retrenchment in that it's not so much of a major statement, and it is sort of back to the original sort of Super Roots where it's more like bits and bobs. But it's still, I mean, there's still some really, really excellent music on it. Where I would go after that, really, would be then Super Roots 8, which is here. And Super Roots 8 are the Boredoms covering a Japanese children's theme song. It is soaring. It's actually, maybe this is their most accessible. It's soaring, beautiful, meditative. It's conventionally gorgeous, most of it. And I want to say it's just sort of like one track and then like either remixes or variations on that. But this is only like maybe 14, 15 minutes. So this, if you are really unadventurous, but you've somehow made it this far, this could potentially be a good place for you to start, but I think you would want to start much later. Or I think you would want to listen to that much later. Another one that I don't have a physical copy of. So there's the Super Roots series, and then in the 2000s there was the Rebor Remix series. And the Rebor Remix series, the last one is the one that was done by Yamatsuka Ai, and it is an album-length remix of Vision Creation New Sun. So this came out 2 years later, and so it's called Rebor Volume 0, and that is really beautiful and very sophisticated. And if you want to listen to it like as a companion piece to Vision Creation New Sun, I think that's treated as like an insanely long double album. You can certainly do that. It's easily the best of the Rebor albums, and and it's because it was done by Yamatsuka Ai. So this is the first Super Roots release, and the first, I don't have a physical copy of Super Roots 2. Never seen one. I've tried to obtain one. It was one of the first things that I ever got a download of. But the first two Super Roots releases, this one is more eye-focused. The second one is a bit more band-focused. They're much shorter releases, and they are just sort of cool cutting room floor companions to the albums from the time. So the first Super Roots release was in '93, which just after Poptari. And then the second one came out in '94. It actually came apparently with copies of Chocolate Synthesizer. So, but I wasn't buying Boredoms records in '94. So yeah. Then Super Roots 7 is really a really cool kind of liquid psychedelic release. It's a cover inspired by a Mekon song, and then it just, I had it upside down, and then variations of remixes by I. The remixes are where the real action is. So the actual sort of part that is the cover, quote unquote, is probably the least interesting, and then it goes into, he layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and builds out some beautiful, into some beautiful textural explorations. For the final Super Roots release, Super Roots 10 is it called Ant? I don't have a physical copy of that. That is cool. It's interesting. It's the closest that the Boredoms sort of get to dance music. It's the final Boredoms release. I like it, but I don't necessarily think it's great. I think that the idea that the Boredoms sort of end with Super Roots 9 and then the 77 Boa drum is sort of a more perfect ending. But, it's cool, it's good, but it's way down the list of what I think you should check out. And then there are the Rebor records. Yamatsuka and none of the other Boredoms participated. They have different people remixing. Just be honest, I'm not terribly interested in that. No offense to anybody, but it's just, I've listened to them. They're fine, What I would throw in is, if you do want to check out Yoshimi, any of her stuff, she has 2 bands. OOIOO are excellent. And her more sort of chamber music band, Psychobab, is SAICOBAB. I would definitely recommend. But I would be remiss if I did not touch upon this record. And this I got in Japan. I had they still have like real record stores in Japan. This is the Pipeline compilation, and they have 4-story tower records in Japan. Isn't that amazing? And so I had we made 2 visits there. I was there in 2019. It was just months before the pandemic, and I was very lucky to get in there. And this is a collaboration, and I want to see if I can get the name. No, damn it. And I'm not going to, because I won't be able to find it in the vast sea of artwork that comes with this album. But this is the Pipeline compilation, so it's Yamatsuka Ai. This is when he was known as Yamantaka, and another person whose name I'm forgetting, please forgive me. But they made this entire album, the 2 of them, and this is from, I want to say, 95. This is the 2 of them pretending to be, they invented a genre called puzzle punk, and they created 24 puzzle punk bands, and then recorded songs as those bands. This is one of the most banging, amazing, creative albums, and just as great as any of the Boredoms' major statements, and comes with this ridiculous, dense, epic sprawl of artwork created with the two guys, and I never knew that this existed until 2019, and I just saw it in this record store, and the guy at Tower Records pointed it out to me, and I think he was very bemused that there was a Westerner going through the noise section, and he came up to me, and he had very limited English, and he was like, "You like noise?" And I went, and one of the only Japanese words I learned was for yes, hi. He's like, "You like noise? Hi. Japanese noise? Hi." And from there, this gentleman walked me around for 45 minutes, and I bought a stack. It was an amazing experience. God bless him. He would just hand stuff to me, and he would throw out a name or two. So we had a couple names like Boredoms, Yoshimi, we had Merzbow, we had a few names to work with, and he would say like, drummer, Merzbow, very good. And I knew from watching my Abroad in Japan videos that if, he hands with two hands, you accept it with two hands, and you have to inspect it and say, oh, this is amazing. And, but this really was. I mean, what a find. This thing is amazing. There is a download of it out there. If you search the Pipeline compilation, there's a dude who actually took photographs. It's on a music blog somewhere. If I can find it, I'll link it. Otherwise, you know how to use the internet. You wouldn't be here otherwise if you didn't know how to use the internet. I cannot recommend this goddamn thing enough. This is one of the most creative, awesome, bonkers fucking records of the 90s. I absolutely love it. So, and I'm eternally thrilled that I got to find it, because I literally wouldn't have known that it existed. So anyway, so thank you, fella from Tower Records. God bless you. And thank you to the proud island nation of Japan for producing the Boredoms and giving us so many hours of incredible music to listen to. And hopefully this has inspired you to go check them out. And yeah, if you like the Boredoms, or if you have any questions, or if you want to tell me, oh, I can't believe you missed this one single or whatever, please feel free to tell me all about that in the comments below. And otherwise, I will be back soon with another exciting video. And thank you for watching. And all of the, please like and comment and subscribe and all of the YouTube things. And feel free to share this somewhere if that strikes your fancy. So anyway, so yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.